Welcome back to Big Sky Buckets. I'm Big Sky, and today we're going to continue our offseason 24 power rankings going into the 2025 NBA season. We're going to pick up with a brand new tier, and this one should be good teams but have many question marks around them. They may not be as big as red flags like we talked about in the last tier, but this one, I just have concerns with this team. I think they will figure it out is basically what I'm banking on. They'll figure it out, but it might take some time. Like that, maybe some of it's just like this is kind of the ceiling of this team and the floor of this team are relatively similar. And yeah, let's jump into it. Coming in at number 17, ninth in the West, the New Orleans Pelicans. The biggest issue they have, their center depth is non-existent. So much, in fact, that they have basically said they're going to start off the season rolling out DeJounte Murray at the point guard, CJ McCollum at the shooting guard, Brandon Ingram at the small forward, Zion, of course, at the power forward, and Herb Jones, their best perimeter defender and one of the best in the league. Herb Jones, 6'6", at center. Obviously, the issue is this is not going to work. It's a non-zero chance. But, come on, man. In the same division, you have 7-1 Derek Lively for the Mavs, or 6'10" Daniel Gafford for the Mavs. You have 7'4" Victor Wembanyama for the Spurs. Zach Edey at 7'2" for the Grizzlies, or even Brandon Clark, 6'10" for the Grizzlies. I'm not entirely sure who's going to start there yet. I hope it's Zach Edey, just because I'm really interested to see how that goes. And then, of course, with the Rockets is the smallest one with Alperen Sengun at 6'9", 6'10". Might be a little bit taller than that, but you get what I'm saying. Herb Jones is 6'6". Here's the fun part. I could say the same about every single other team in the NBA. The shortest center will be, to start this year, Herb Jones if they play him at the center position. My take is this is not going to last very long. This is a coach who's very smart. He will figure out rotations, and once he does, he'll come to a consensus that is pretty simple. The only reason that this is not the case now is because Trey Murphy III is already injured, but once he comes back healthy, as long as they figure out that the lineup should be DeJounte at the 1, Herb at the 2, because that's where his value most lies in, is playing around the perimeter as one of the best defenders in the league, or perimeter defenders in the league. Trey Murphy at the 3, Zion at the 4, and probably Daniel Tice, I guess, at the 5 for... He may not be the best stretch 5, obviously, but if you can stretch it a little bit, it's all of a sudden, it's oh my God, a stretch 5 next to Zion, there's actual spacing of this team, and there's defense, etc. So, yeah, I'm going to make this one really short. I have recorded this many times and basically scrapped every single one of them, because what I do is I talk myself into getting frustrated and confused on what the idea of this team is, even though I know the idea is it should be Zion's the number one option, spacing and defense around him, and things will work out with more playmaking coming from DeJounte, and that playmaking should help elevate guys like Herb Jones, even Brandon Ingram's catch and shoot 3-point percentage and makes. They were much better when they had a real traditional point guard a couple of years back when Lonzo Ball was on this team. They haven't had a traditional style point guard in a while, so DeJounte in his natural position should elevate that, but he needs someone defensively to be paired next to in the backcourt, and if he's paired with CJ McCollum, it's just kind of a disaster. It feels like we're repeating the Trey and DeJounte experiment from Atlanta the past couple of years. So once they understand that, and that's fine if you want to... Obviously, it's always going to be competition in the West, but the faster they figure it out, the better it will be for the actual results of this team going forward. I do think they should make a trade involving one of CJ or Brandon Ingram to bring in another center, because center depth is extremely important in the West, but they do have a lot of very talented wings on this team and players in general, so I think that puts them at 9th in the West and number 17 on this power rankings. Coming in at number 16, a team that I don't have as many questions about. I just think the ceiling and floor are kind of closer to each other, and that is the Golden State Warriors. They lost Klay Thompson. No fault of anything other than just terrible, terrible luck. He's not exactly the same player. He's a very valuable player, but the money he was making was a lot, and more than anything, I think he was just very mad about how everything was panning out for the rest of his career since he's gotten back from injury, tearing his ACL and Achilles. It's just brutal. Having said that, I think the reason I'm a little bit higher on them than maybe like other people is that you did get other players. They may not be true game changers, but in a system like Golden State, where pace and space, ball movement is extremely invaluable and is what has made the Golden State Warriors so good in the past, is bringing in DeAnthony Melton. He may not be the greatest shooter, but some defense, another guard. So guard depth is going to be on lock for this team, and he can shoot the ball. Buddy Hield, who can absolutely lace the ball. He is not good at defense, but if you pair him with DeAnthony Melton off the bench, you might have something there. Brennan Pajemski, now as a starter, should be really interesting because, he was extremely good last year. TDJ getting some more time to play for this team, second round pick from last year, playing as the kind of small ball center. But small ball, unlike any other team in the league, you can bank on the Warriors to be a good small ball team because Steph Curry exists, because Draymond Green, despite him rapidly aging and regressing, is still a good defender. One of the issues of this team is most likely when Draymond plays, this team is actually very good. When he gets suspended or doesn't play, this team is going to suffer. So we'll see what happens. I assume the starting lineup will be Steph Curry at point guard, Brandon Pajemski at the shooting guard, Andrew Wiggins. I know he's injured currently, but eventually he'll come back and be the small forward. Big year for Jonathan Kuminga, who's probably going to be the starting power forward, and then I guess they'll start Draymond at the 5. It'll be nice to see if they put TDJ in at the starting 5 and then Draymond back at the 4. And I know Jonathan Kuminga is definitely more of a power forward, but we'll see what happens there. I just think this team is going to be good. I don't have as many questions. There's not as many concerns in terms of injury, I think, with this team. Steph just has a little bit better of a track record recently than someone like LeBron and AD for the Lakers, or obviously Kawhi, who's injured right now. So that's why they should. Earlier it was I was going to have them at 17 and then the Pelicans at 16, but I have more concerns about the Pelicans' rotations and who they're starting out the gate. But I mean, this team's going to be good. They're going to be 8th in the West. They're probably they're going to be in the play-in for sure, like the Warriors typically are, or higher than that. But just like the Lakers, just like the Rockets, even the Pelicans, this is another team that you can pretty much bank on attempting to get into conversations about making a trade, but we'll see what ends up actually happening there. But I still think this is one of the few teams in the NBA where their floor is actually based on their offense, and that offense can win them games, like the Pacers, and at least one other team. But most teams, it's got to be about their defense and depth in general. I'm just a little bit more sold on the fact that the Warriors find a way to be good. And coming in at number 15, 8th in the East. Basically, all of these teams in this tier specifically, they're probably, the difference between them is probably a game, maybe even half a game. I have the Miami Heat. Perennial, past 2 years, they've basically been the 8th seed. Found a way to make the playoffs, and sometimes they make a miraculous run, and sometimes they get bounced. Last year they got bounced. The year before that they made the finals. This is a weird team, but the reason I have them above the Warriors, in my opinion, is last year during the trade deadline, they got Terry Rozier. But we never really got to see the full starting 5 lineup actually develop in any way, shape, or form because one of them was always injured, including Jimmy Butler, etc. But the starting lineup probably looks like Terry Rozier at the 1, Tyler Hero at the 2, Jimmy Butler at the 3, Nikola Jovic at the 4, and Bam Adebayo at the 5. This team, with their depth too, now getting Kelly Ware out of Indiana, he should be very good as the backup 5. They typically have really struggled in the backup 5 minutes over the past number of years, and that is just because they have never really valued it because Bam is so good and he plays so many minutes for them. They have one of the best, if not the best, coaches in Eric Spoelstra. The question marks here, to me, are very simple. Does Jimmy Butler give a shit about the regular season? I seriously mean that, because there's a lot of times he just obviously doesn't comes alive in the playoffs, and then they make a deep run, and then they're just overmatched by like the finals. They have good bench depth on this team. They're going to be solid. I just think it's not really a gap, but most people are going to say 7 through, 2 in the East, all interchangeable by a game or so. Then it's not a gap to me. It's like the Heat are going to be the 8th seed in the East, unless they really take the regular season seriously, or someone has an insane regression within the 2 through 7 in the East. But they come in at 15 just because I know what I'm going to get from them. And the teams we've just recently talked about, Hawks, Clippers, Rockets, Lakers, Pelicans, Warriors, there's a lot more things can vary. There's more questions, red flags, etc. But this is what it's been the past 2 years, and I have a hard time seeing how they didn't really change their roster much other than drafting Kelly Ware. I don't know how they make a massive leap or they regress at an insane rate just because of how good Bam Adebayo is as a floor raiser. And honestly, when Jimmy tries, the floor and ceiling raising is there. This team's just going to be good. They're always pretty good. They may not be the upper echelon in the East, but this is where they fit in, right here at number 15. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening. Comment, like, subscribe. I'd really appreciate the support. We're going to be rolling these out, so I will see you probably in the next day. Peace.